Hey, Louise here, and look at this beauty. Oh my goodness, 9 patches, gotta love them, especially when you put them in an Irish chain. I reversed mine. I made my chain white and everything else dark, and I think that just brings in so much more color and vibrancy, and this is super scrappy. Right now, I want to show you this gorgeous quilt. And one of the tricks I want you to see here is you see how we have these 9 patches? Imagine sewing all those together, how difficult that can be. Not difficult, but timely to match all these seams. Well, notice in the Irish chain, they use an alternating block, a solid block that doesn't have any seams. And that way you're eliminating so many seams in this quilt, which is why it's a popular choice for a lot of quilters. It's a technique you can use across with any other kind of pieced blocks, whether it be a 4-patch or half square triangles. If you alternate it, or even stars, you see that a lot too. If you alternate this with solid blocks, you're going to save on matching corners, which is a huge time saver. Now, the other trick I want to show you is how I cut these strips. Oh my gosh, it worked really, really well. And I'll show you that a little later on. But right now, let's get started. We have some quilting to do. Since I haven't been able to quilt a whole lot in the last month or so, I have an abundance of fabric piling up, and I need to get going. This is my most recent bundle, Fat Quarter Batik bundle from the Fat Quarter shop, and I love these colors. I had been holding on to this layer cake that I got at a local discount store. I pulled some of the colors for another quilt, but then I thought it needs more. It's just, I want more color to really make it stand out. And I put this here, look at these blues and greens, but then bring in some lavender and some purple and fuchsia. That's going to be gorgeous. And of course, look at, I just happen to have an extra Fat Quarter here. Of course I do. And then this was my April edition. This is my March bundle of fabric that I received. And I can use a lot of these. You see there's some purpley fabrics in here, and I'll probably put the greens with this bundle. But then I have this over here. It's called Misty Shores. It's from last fall. And it makes me think of like, lakeside camping, fishing on the river kind of thing. And some of these blues are going to fit in beautifully there. So between these bundles that each have 12 Fat Quarters, so there's 9 yards of fabric plus Fat Quarters plus extra. So I probably have a dozen yards of fabric here, and I am ready to quilt. So let me group everything up and I'll show you what we're going to do. With fabric cut, I'm ready to sew, but I do want to show you how I cut everything. I had Fat Quarters and I had layer cakes. So I started with the layer cakes, and I just stacked them up however many. I have the large 60 millimeter and rotary cutter, and this can go through quite a bit of fabric at once. So it depends on what you use. Just make sure you have a good sharp blade. And actually, there's a sale on blades right now. Down below, I'll put the link. The Fabric Hut has a sale on their blades. So that's the blades that I use with the titanium coating. So with that being said, the first thing we're going to do is make a cut at 6.5 inches. I'm going to need a total of 121 blocks, and half of them will be these solid 6.5-inch squares. So that's going to be 60, and then the other half will be 61. And I'm doing that, breaking it up that way because the rows are going to be uneven. It's going to be 11 by 11 to make it 66 inches square. And in doing that, I want these to not fall in the corner. I want my patterned blocks to be in the corner, so I've got my pattern going all the way across the quilt. And that's where this is coming from, these measurements and how I'm doing it. So I cut a 6.5 inch here, and then I cut a 2.5 inch over here. This I'm going to hold aside because I'll do my strip sets with this. That leaves an inch in between, and what I did is cut these in half. You can even take them to thirds, but I'm going to use this for my basket weaving. Did you see that last week? Oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun with that. And so now I get to add more to that pile. And then what I do is I'll just turn this, cut it at 6.5 inches, and this is a 3.5 inch piece. So this is the extra that I'm going to have left over, and I'll just set that aside. So that takes care of my layer cakes. The next thing is, because I don't have enough of these, I don't have a full 60. I think I had, let's see, I had 30. Yes, I had 30 fabrics, so that means I need another 30. And what I did was lay out my fat quarters, and I pressed them nice, and I laid them out the long way. So it was 20 inches across the bottom. Actually, it was like 21 and a half. And again, I layered my fabrics, put the selvage on that side, trimmed up this side, and I cut a 6.5 inch strip from side to side. Then I came back and I cross-cut them at 6.5. So I have 3 stacks of 6.5 inch blocks. And this will go with this to give me my 60. Now, with that being done, there was just the teeniest bit left over at the end, but I'm saving those too. I'm just keeping all kinds, whoops, not this one here, these little ones. So I had these little ones at the end. I cut off the selvage. They ended up being about 1.25 inches, and I'll come up with something on those. I'm not exactly sure. The next thing is I have my 2.5 inch strips from the layer cake. Now I need to do that from the fat quarter. So depending on how many blocks you're going to be making, you'll probably need 1 or 2 widths. I ended up going with 2. So from across my fabric, from side to side, across the 20+ inch piece, I cut a 2.5 and a 2.5. And then I cut those in half to 10 inches. And then there was a little bit at the end like I showed you. But what I'm doing is I'm creating my stacks of 2.5 by 10 inch strips to create my strip sets. And I want this out of all the fabrics. Now, we're going with lights and darks. So these blocks are all going to be my darker mediums and darks. And these strips, for the most part, are going to be. And I'm going to show you how we assemble the strips and then how the strip sets are made. So I'm going to set these aside. And what I want to show you is I'm going to take a dark strip and a light strip. And I'm going to go through and sew that down and open it up. And then I'm going to do a third strip. And this will give me, these are 2.5 by 10. This will give me 6.5 inches. So that means these are going to line up together, which is what I want. Now, a couple things that can occur, and this happened with me on this particular fat quarter when I was cutting, and I had kind of some folds and rough edges on one of the pieces. These didn't come out a full 2.25 inches. So I took the 3 pieces that were not, or excuse me, 2.5 inches. They were more like 2.25. So I took the 3 pieces I had and I put them all together of the one fabric. And then I sewed them together like this. You see how I have a seam right here? And who would even notice? I did that, and then I went and I cut it into 2 separate pieces. So I had 3 strips, sewed them together, and then cut them into 2 strips of the right size. And it worked beautifully. And so when you look at this and you look at this, I mean, you don't hardly see that seam at all, which is great. So that's a wonderful way if you're using scraps and you don't quite have enough. And even though this one is darker and this is light right there, you really don't see that. Besides, batiks are so forgiving because they do have such gradient colors throughout the fabric. Now, there are 2 different strip sets that we need. We need one where we have our light color in the center like this, and we need another that's going to be dark in the center and light to the outside. Now these light ones are only for the strips. I didn't cut any of these to be the blocks because the strip is going to create my diagonal pattern. And I was afraid if I had blocks in the same color, the pattern wouldn't stand out as much. So all my light fabrics that I'm using have either strong white elements or white backgrounds. Now, what do we do here? This is the fun part. And this is what I want to show you. So let's take, actually we can use this right here. This is going to be perfect. So I do my strip sets and I sew one set together and I press it to the dark side. Then I go through them all and do that. I press the other side, so I have 3 strips, and that's pressed to the dark side. So these are pressed to the dark here, and this is pressed to the dark in the center. As long as you keep all your strips pressed to the center, all seams to the center where the dark fabric is, then you're going to have nesting seams. Let me show you. So when I put these together, we're going to ignore that little seam there right now because it really doesn't matter when we're putting it together. But you see, as I put this together, I'm going to get well, there we go, a nesting seam right here and a nesting seam right here. And my seam allowances go in opposite directions, so they're going to fit perfectly and be really easy to sew. So at this point, what I would do is put the 2 of these together, and if some of them are a little wonky and uneven, just sort of measure and see that you have your 10 inches and your 6.5. Now, I'll tell you, I know I've talked about these pre-cut rulers before, but they are wonderful if you're using pre-cut sizes. And in this case, I'm going to cut the 10-inch into a 5-inch. And so I can just measure, make sure I've got my 10 inches. And now, because it's 5 inches wide, I can just put this right here on the line. And I see my line is there. Let me get my right rotary cutter. Got all kinds of things here. And I'm going to just cut this right across here. Now, what I'll do is I'll take the first one, because this is what it'll look like, and I'm going to sew it down one side and down the other side. And it's going to look like this. So you see, I have a seam here and I have a seam here. And when this is sewn together and I press it, then I'm going to come in with my 2.5-inch ruler. See what I mean? You don't even have to measure the ruler. I don't even have to line it up on the grid. I just put this right here. And if you're worried, then put this here and make sure you've got your 2.5-inch, and then cut this. So now these are all set. Now I'm going to need to add one more row, but this is the quick way to get this started. This is going to make these go really, really fast. So with this done, I'm going to, let's see, let me find another piece here. Okay, this one. So this one was green on the bottom, like this. They're the same. And I put different colors on top because I don't want them to duplicate. I don't want to have the same fabrics together, so I try and mix them up. So I'll go ahead and sew these, and then I'll do the same thing. Then when I get my 61 blocks, these pairs together and set to go, then I'll take what's left, cut them in half, and put them on the other edge. So I'll end up with these, and like I said, I'll have 61 of these. See that seam? Look at that. I mean, you hardly notice it. But the thing that you really need to be careful of is that your block looks like this. We want the 5 to be light, the outer corners in the center, because this is going to create our diagonal pattern. And then next to each of these will be our 6.5-inch blocks that will match up all the way around. So this, alternating blocks like this, where you have a patchwork and a large square, makes so much easier because you don't have to match up these seams. And that can really be a hassle. You know how that, and it's not a hassle. We can make it so it's easy to be done, but it takes a lot of time. And, you know, I'm putting a lot of time into these pieces, but I'm going to appreciate that I have those large blocks too, because then I don't have to worry about matching up every seam along the way. By the time I get these 60 pairs done up, and then I put the other 60 singles on there, I'm going to be kind of tired. And so this is just going to make it easy. And I love when things go simply. Okay, I think that's everything. Did I show you how to cut this in half? I think we did. That's right, because we did the 2.5 inch. So I'll do this here, and I'll cut it. And then I will just match these up. And you'll notice these are duplicates, but reverse. So they'll have the same fabrics, but you see that these are in the center. You see how they're reversed. So if you put them side by side, they're not going to be the same. And so what I would do then is take one of these. Which one do I want? This one. And I'll put these two together. And now I'm going to sew this. So that's all there is to it, to making these blocks. They go together very quickly. And the cutting is simple. You just have some basic straight cuts, and the sewing goes together really well. And again, as long as you do your pressing in the right order, making everything go to the darker fabric, even if you reverse this and you put the darks on the outside and the lights in the middle, you still press it to the dark, and then you're going to have the same results. It'll just be in the opposite direction, but it still works. So there you go. This is going to be a wonderful success. You will love doing this because it goes together so quickly. Now, let me get some of this finished, and I'm going to show you how we assemble. Look at all this. Look at all these pieces I have. Oh my goodness. And look at, and there's more. And there's more. Okay. We got work to do. So here's something that I think is pretty awesome. You got to keep an open mind when you're sewing and you're quilting and you're piecing, and think about, how can I do this maybe a little more effectively, quicker, efficiently, whatever the case may be. So remember, I was cutting these in half and then mixing them up, and I'd sew down both sides, and then I'm going to cut it down the middle, and I get these pieces, and then I'll just add one more to get my 9 patch, which is great. And that's all well and good. But I thought, why cut these in half first? Just sew them. So I sewed here and I sewed here. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to make sure I've got my 10 inches. I checked everything first, but I'm just double checking. So I'm going to come here and do my 2.5 on this side. And then I'm going to do my 2.5 on this side. And just because this is the first one, I'm making sure I do it on the grid so I don't miss anything. Okay, yeah, that's all working out great. Okay, so 2.5 and 2.5. So what I have here are 2 pieces, one from each end. Oops, did I miss something? Oh, I didn't get the thread. Like this and like this. All right, and now I have these 2 pieces. So instead of, sewing these together, now I can take, whoop, those are already sewn. I can cut these extra ones. I'm going to have to take you to the next. Okay, so step 1. So then we go to the next one. Let's just kind of make sure I get some different color fabrics. Yeah, here, this will be a good one. Right here. All right. And I've got my 10 inches. Let's move this so we can see. I have my 10 inches on each side. So I'm going to cut this at 2.5. And cut this at 2.5. Make sure I get that right on. Okay, and then now what I can do, so again, I have my pieces like this, right? So now what I can do is mix these with these. So you see I have a dark center and a light, and on this one, these were the 2 that went together. You see this and this? So what I can do is mix it up with 2 other blocks, and that changes it up. And now I come down here, and that just saves an extra step of cutting. Now, once this part gets done, we still have these that we'll need to come back and cut one more piece for, and that's going to be done with this stack. So there's still a ways to go, but we're getting close. I hope this all makes sense. That sounds a little crazy the way I was saying it and doing it, but on the sewing machine, it works fantastic. Oh, we are getting so close. All my 6 patches are here. I just need to add this last one, this last strip right here. And I want to make sure that the 4 darks are in the center and each corner has a light as well as the center is light. And then this is going to create my pattern. It's going to be like an Irish chain, but it's very scrappy. And I think with the white backgrounds, the chain should show pretty well, but it's not going to be as dominant as a solid white would be. And that's just something to consider what you want. But I'm going scrappy. I want lots of fabrics, lots of colors, and this is just going to help balance everything out. Now, you saw that I had all these sewn in my 10-inch strips. All I did for these to get the piece that I'm going to add on the end here is lay it out flat. I pressed everything, and again, remember we just pressed everything towards the dark. And as I'm getting ready, I grab my 2.5-inch ruler and I make 3 cuts, and I'm good to go. And then I'm just going to start sewing these on, and we have our 6 that are all ready together, and I'm going to line these up, and I can look at it and say, do I want it this way? Do I want it this way? And since there's so much pink there, I probably want to use the blue because I want contrast. Contrast is what's really going to make this pattern stand out. And you see how as I line this up in the corners and my seam allowance, I'm going to nest everything and sew it. And look at these beautiful blocks. Oh my goodness, so close. Next time I'm back here, there's going to be 61 of these finished, and then we're ready to start putting this quilt together. Well, that didn't take long at all. Look at all these. Oh my goodness, 61 of these beautiful pieces. Now, I have the 3rd strip sewn on, and what I need to do now is just press everything. And I think what I'm going to do is just come in and press this flat and go this way. So that way both seams go to the outside. But there are already extra seams there, so should I come to the inside? It doesn't matter, it's going to be the same either way. So for me, it's going to be easier just to come down the middle and press it outward. Then once that's done, I start adding them to the other blocks, and it's going to go so quick. Oh my goodness, we are so close. And look at this, I have 60 blocks all pressed and ready to sew. Look at, aren't they beautiful? Oh my gosh, these are going to look wonderful together. And now I'm going to mix them up with this and alternate. Look at how gorgeous that's going to be. Those colors are just going to stand out. They're so vibrant and beautiful. Wow, this quilt is going to be stunning with all these colors, and the contrast is making such a big impact. Okay, it's time to do some work here, and I need to figure out, I don't know if I want to sew them together in a 9-patch, put them together in pairs in a 4-patch, or just do the web. I don't know. So let me figure out what I'm going to work on, and I'll show you what I decide. Just look at how beautiful this quilt turned out. Oh my gosh, I love it, I love it, I love it. I do want to show you, I did do the web method, and when I started my row, first I sewed 1, and then I went on all the way through, so you can see that these are chain stitched. And so I just kept sewing right through. Oops, it's folded on the seam. So I kept sewing all the way through. And then when I was finished, I started doing sewing the rows together. But I just want to show you some of these colors. Oh my goodness, aren't they beautiful? Now this is where the quilt has been sewn together, and I'll do a picture of the whole thing. It's just this is pretty tough to get on my camera. It is 11 blocks at 6 inches, so it's 66 inches square. And oh my gosh, look at how pretty, all those beautiful colors. I absolutely love it. I hope you enjoyed this. Oh my gosh, I hope you're going to consider doing your own. And when you see the full layout, wait till you see how these white blocks really stand out and shows off the chain. I was worried because some of these darker ones had more color coverage than the white, but it works beautifully. And I think that's because I used predominantly blues and greens in the large squares. There were a few that had some other colors like this fuchsia, but it was very dark, so it really didn't conflict with these colors here. So fun. I call this one a success. Now, let me show you the overhead view. Just look at this gorgeous quilt. Oh my goodness, these colors are fabulous. They're bright, they're bold, and that white chain really stands out. It's everything that I wanted it to be, and it's so pretty. It makes me happy. Luckily, this pollen-driven sinus throat thing that's happening that's trying to take my voice away waited until I was just about finished. So just in time, we can close this video out, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a wonderful joy to make this quilt and to have you follow along with me, and it is so terrific to be back with you all. I hope you have a great rest of your week and enjoy this quilt and maybe even make your own. As always, it is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much and have a fantastic evening.